So is this your final interview?
This is my final interview. I have no intention of speaking out to the media for any reason in the future.
That was John Ramsey 8 years ago on Dr. Phil. In the last 8 weeks, John Ramsey has given over a dozen new interviews, basically as public relations PR, to promote the biased pro-intruder theory in the Netflix series. And I do think this is a very silly example of inconsistent statements. John says quite expressly, quite explicitly.
Do you think you'll ever speak about this again?
No. There's no point. I'm done.
911 emergency. Oh my God!
It was a big story, right? Just a lot of chaos.
The JonBenet's Ramsey murder.
They made up their mind on day one that I killed my daughter.
Additionally, there are going to be more television series coming out, and you can decide with this information whether or not it's actually a dramatic recreation or whether or not it's going to be based on accuracy.
Welcome back to CrimeCon 2024. And joining us now, JonBenet's dad, John Ramsey, is with us live here in Nashville. Great to see you, John. Thanks so much for joining us.
Hey everybody, Nate Eaton here at CrimeCon. I'm backstage with John Ramsey, the father of JonBenet's Ramsey. John, I remember as a child.
We're not asking you to clear us or apologize or be nice to us again. Just do the things that you should do. That
is with us now, along with director Joe Berlinger. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Nice to see you.
You know, we saw 28 years. I mean, it's just...
I had JonBenet bless my life for 6 years, and she really was a blessing. Just an amazing little kid.
To start, I feel like there is this perception that when you do kind of interviews, that they're very orchestrated, or there's...
But for the first time, we have John Ramsey and Geraldo Rivera to discuss how far we've come.
I don't apologize for my reporting.
New details on the investigation into the 1996 killing of JonBenet's Ramsey. Her father is speaking for the first time about reported progress in the case.
Our criticism of the police from day one was that...
You know, there are few better ways to get fresh eyes on a cold case than to give it the Netflix treatment. We are still talking about this because you don't have the answers that you need. So hopefully with Netflix and with more conversations, the lead comes out. And
let's just start with, the information that's been reported over the past couple of days. The New York Post reporting that they have a couple investigative sources saying that they think that 2025 may be their year to have a break in this case.
There's a new Netflix docuseries, and it's terrific. Joe Berlinger is the director of this series. He joins me now along with John Ramsey.
Now in his 80s, John Ramsey is still trying to clear his and Patsy's names.
Finding the killer isn't going to change my life at this point.
That's 16. That's enough. And there are likely to be at least half a dozen more interviews between now, Christmas, and the end of the year. 20 plus interviews is a lot in a single year. But when you look at the substance of it, none of it is new. Most of it involves the same old tired cliches from the Ramsey playbook. Boulder PD botched it. The media was unfair. And of course, we're engaging constantly with the media right now. An intruder killed JonBenet, and it's a DNA case. For me, the Ramsey case is crying out for new information. In 28 years, we've seen precious little in the way of new information, which is ridiculous given how much information is out there. So unlike the 15, 20 or more media shills who are all trumpeting the same old, in my opinion, bogus, dog-eared story, 15 to 20 sort of media people basically just helping John promote a Netflix docuseries, I'm going to tell you a story you've likely never heard before that's going to enrich your knowledge of this case, provide insight, and hopefully be a little meaningful as well.
I got nightmares in my head, I fear. Thoughts build up until I can't feel. My mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares in my head, I fear. Thoughts build up
Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science. So as promised, I want to talk to you about something that you've likely know very, very little about, and that is JonBenet's grandfather. But before we get to that, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. Just to note, Christmas Star is a number 14 Amazon bestseller right now. I wonder if it's going to break into Amazon's top 10. Remember, any reviews left in the next week, I'll be happy to read right here, along with addressing any questions or comments left in the review. Do you mind if I ask a small favor? I've posted many videos on this case and I've worked hard, I've put in a lot of hours, yet I see, can you believe this, less than a third of you watching are actually subscribed. Less than a third of you are actually subscribed. So if you're one of the more than 2/3 that are not subscribed, do you mind subscribing right now? Let's call it an early Christmas present. Yeah, I would really appreciate it. Thanks, guys. Also, only 16% of my subscribers have hit the notification bell. Wouldn't you like notifications of JonBenet Ramsey related content this Christmas, knowing what you can expect from this channel? Well, if you would, hit the notification bell right now. Also, coming up in the next video, we'll be covering 10 things you didn't know about JonBenet's brother. You're not going to want to miss that. And so, without any further ado, unless you want to hit the thanks button, let's get started. So we're going to deal with 6 aspects of John Ramsey's father's, JonBenet's grandfather's backstory. Have you got your notebooks ready? Number 1, like father, like son. On Wikipedia, we find this very generic description of John Ramsey's parents. Ramsey was born in Lincoln, Nebraska, the son of Mary Jane née Bennett and James Dudley J. Ramsey, a decorated World War II pilot. You might want to circle that word decorated. John Ramsey attended Okemos High School in Michigan. In 1966, he graduated from Michigan State University with a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering. Ramsey earned a master's degree in business administration, basically an MBA, right, from MSU in 1971. Ramsey joined the Navy in 1966, served as a civil engineer corps officer in the Philippines for 3 years. I've actually been to the Philippines, that's quite a way away, and in an Atlanta Reserve unit for an additional 8 years. Think about that, that's 11 years spent in the military, and then he goes on to become a successful businessman. And so this is J. Ramsey, a name that reminds me a little of J. Gatsby. This is him. The older John looks a lot like him, doesn't he? Mind you, the younger John does too. Now, we really want to look at those trophies behind Jay and circle them, because trophies seem to play a part in his daughter JonBenet's life as well. She even had a trophy room. JonBenet's pageant trophies, her mother and aunt also collecting beauty pageant titles, Burke likely collecting scout badges, although we don't know that for sure, and John collecting sailing trophies. All of this sort of comes together in a very competitive sort of family. John Ramsey also once upon a time spoke of keeping a medal that JonBenet had won. So you can see how these symbols of prestige and performance have always been a big deal with his family. Show what you're worth. How much are you worth? These are competitive, hard-working, hard-driven folk. You'll also notice, besides coming from a military family, and think about how in the military you have these badges of honor, right? This is what I've earned for doing this and that kind of thing. And you also have that in Scouts. And being a military man for 11 years, John goes on to sell his company to America's largest defense contractor at the time, Lockheed. And that didn't happen in a vacuum. And I think this hints at why and how that happened and why it was possible. The Ramseys seem to have family contacts within the U.S. military, Air Force and Navy, and I think that went back decades. Another thing to notice here is that Mary Jane, JonBenet's grandmother, died fairly prematurely at 59 years in 1978. Remember, Patsy died at 49 years of age, 10 years younger than JonBenet's grandmother. Also, do you notice the very same year John's mother, Mary Jane, died, John Ramsey divorced his first wife, Lucinda Porsche. And we get all of this just from that generic Wikipedia profile. Granddad Jay, the widower, outlived his spouse by 14 years, but he died in 1992 when JonBenet was just 2. So that poor little girl lost her grandfather when she was a 2-year-old. 1992 was also the same year that Beth Ramsey, JonBenet's oldest stepsister, died in a fatal car crash. So in 1992, two Ramsey family members died in the same year. I think it's important to note that before JonBenet was born and very early on afterwards, John had actually lost both parents and his daughter Beth. That's 3 family members. In the space of less than 20 years, John lost both parents and 2 daughters. That's 4 people, and Patsy died shortly after as well in 2006. That's 5 people. We can only speculate if both of John's parents had been alive in the late 1990s, how they might have advised or influenced John regarding the death of JonBenet and how to deal with it, how to handle it, rather than a bunch of lawyers. And who knows, it's possible JonBenet wouldn't have died in the first place if John wasn't working so hard and the family wasn't as stressed as they were. I mean, if the support system of 2 additional grandparents was also there, you often see when you have young children, grandparents stepping in to lighten the sort of load of looking after them. And think about that, especially within the context of Patsy having stage 4 cancer treatment. Number 2, who was Jay Ramsey? Now, John Ramsey, despite his many interviews, remains, do you agree, something of an enigma. So perhaps we can get a better sense of the man, the father, and the type of person he is through his own father. Let's go to airzoo.org. James D. J. Ramsey was the director of the Michigan Aeronautics Commission for 22 years prior to his retirement in April 1979. Under Ramsey's 22 years of leadership, aviation in Michigan grew from 130 licensed airports and 4 licensed seaplane bases to 322 licensed airports, 4 seaplane bases, and 4 heliports. The number of registered aircraft grew from 2,500 and something to 6,500, and registered pilots from 2,000 to, get this, 17,000. His successful leadership was well known and highly recognized throughout the country. But look at some of those words there. Grew, successful leadership, well known, highly recognized. Now, besides growing his influence in the region and becoming influential, Jay Ramsey became a well-known leader. John did too. John was recognized as an entrepreneur of the year, and at least in Boulder, John was arguably a famous or at least an influential and well-respected businessman before fame turned to infamy in Colorado. And think about it as well, being a CEO of a company, John was also a leader in a real sense as well. And we've seen important people from important families before on this channel, including Stockton Rush. That's from the Titan Submersible story. These individuals are often driven to perform and ambitious because they feel they have to meet, they are burdened by high family expectations. And so failure isn't an option. That's important. Failure isn't an option. And how did this burden impact John Ramsey and the Ramsey family? Number 3, Jay's backstory. Now, Jay's backstory, where does this take us? Well, it gets more into the meat and potatoes of who someone is. Who Jay is going to give us an idea of who John is. Let's go back to airzoo.org. Born in Des Moines, Iowa in 1916, Ramsey held a Bachelor of Science degree in Business Administration from the University of Nebraska. John Ramsey got a similar, if perhaps more prestigious degree, an MBA, but also Business Administration. Jay went on to focus on aeronautical engineering. What did John go on to focus on? Electrical engineering, which would help him in the 90s in terms of this whole computer business. But you see, both father and son go on to study engineering. Jay Ramsey receives his pilot license in 1938 and eventually held commercial instructor instrument single and multi-engine land ratings. That's quite impressive. He logged more than 14,000 hours of flying time. He was a flight instructor from 1941 to 1943. That's during the Second World War. And in 1943 served as chief pilot and assistant airport manager in Lincoln, Nebraska. John Ramsey, like his dad, also got his pilot's license, but this makes one wonder whether, if his father taught flying, is that where John got the idea or the impetus to do something similar, except with sailing? After all, just as you see in Top Gun Maverick, a lot of pilots are also sailors playing with the wind. Are there any pilots or sailors watching that if you a pilot you also sail? Anyone like that? Well, look at this article, Flying Magazine, a sailor pilot ruminates on his twin passions. It's from November 2021. Both pilots and sailors tend to be romantics with a practical bent, those with the soul of a poet and the mind of an engineer. And this is a side to the Ramseys, and I guess to John, that we don't really think about much. Having the soul of a poet, remember John has written 2 books, he's gotten married 3 times, and when it comes to a romantic, there is, I think, another dimension to that, which is, in a word, drama. Also bear in mind, with this word romantic, John has been married 3 times. And the show Patsy put on in terms of Christmas was also, if you ask me, quite romantic, quite beautiful, quite even sentimental, quite dramatic. Number 4, another word for drama is pageantry. Think about the thing about the Ramsey case that's so extraordinary, that makes it so different to literally every other true crime case. It's this rich family drama. A child beauty queen who dies during Christmas in this beautiful historic house in this beautiful town called Boulder. It's the background of these beautiful mountains, the Flatirons, with immaculate Christmas decorations. There's an over-the-top ransom note, and then despite the kidnapping drama, which turns out to be fictitious, just think about the drama of the ransom note, the whole kidnapping thing as a drama. And then JonBenet is dramatically found inside the house after all of that. And then the drama has basically not stopped ever since. There's also this incredible drama between 2 detectives giving it their all to solve the case of a lifetime, and both dramatically fail. They both hand in their resignations. There's also the dramatic district attorney who does something dramatic as well, right? We do not have sufficient evidence when everyone is waiting for the drama of the grand jury trial to conclude. And then John Mark Carr providing comic relief. And then just look at how dramatic this year has been. But now, perhaps now is also a good time to think about the drama and pageantry of Christmas. Wherever you are in the world, look around you. Look at the decorations, look at the rituals, the protocols, the wrapping, the role certain people play, the clothes, houses, and people are expected to wear, the pieces of paper that cover things up, the ribbons, the writing of notes and signing them, sometimes signing them in a way that's not true, that Santa did this when it's actually someone else who wrote it, and then wishing everyone a Merry Christmas, even if, truth be told, things are perhaps not so merry in our heart of hearts, or even in the basements of the home, inside our homes. I think John was attracted to Patsy because of his romantic interest in drama, which I think comes from a deep-seated sense of just wanting to be something more. And like Jay Gatsby in The Great Gatsby, I think there's an element of that here in what we might call the Great Ramsey. Number 5, John's father was a big deal. What also comes across in JonBenet's grandfather's backstory is courage and character, and besides bravery, work ethic. We know there's a lot of work ethic with John, with Patsy, and with JonBenet as well, and probably with Burke as well. Look at this from airzoo.org. Ramsey joined the United States Air Force in 1944 and ferried aircraft within the United States and Alaska before he was assigned to the Air Transport Command and later to combat cargo in the China-Burma-India Theater. He was awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross, the Air Medal, and 3 battle stars. In the Korean War, he was appointed to Task Force C of the National Security Resources Board and assisted in drafting plans for the use of non-scheduled aircraft carriers. Big deal, right? No matter what you think of the Ramseys, whether innocent or guilty, make no mistake, JonBenet's death propelled them into a battle for the hearts and minds of Americans, a battle for their reputations, a battle for John to hold on to his job. And guess what? They won the battle, which they achieved, and this I think a lot of people don't realize. They achieved that they won this battle by hook or by crook, through no small portion of bravery. And I want you to have a look at this excerpt from the airzoo.org article. Just look at these accolades and awards given to John's father: President and Treasurer, Chairman, Vice President, member of the Civil Aeronautics Agency Aviation Development Advisory Committee. And it just goes on and on. Member of this, member of that association, volunteer consultant and advisory, awards and citations, individual achievement, meritorious service, an award in 1970, another award in 1971. It concludes with the words, for his substantial dedication and significant contributions to growing and furthering aviation in Michigan, J. Ramsey embodies the virtues and qualities extolled by the Michigan Aviation Hall of Fame. And that brings us to the last point. J. Ramsey was a prestigious fellow. And I just want to highlight this area, this prestige that, that John Ramsey comes out of this really prestigious family. And what kind of burden is associated with that, right? J. Ramsey embodies the virtue and qualities extolled by blah, blah, blah Hall of Fame. Now, with that sort of pride and reputation associated with a family member on top of you, your own father, can you imagine the ignominy, the shame, the humiliation, the embarrassment, the disgrace of a dead child in your basement, the fact of that? Which makes the title of their book, The Death of Innocence, make a lot more sense within this context, doesn't it? I'm not going to take it further than that. In the next analysis, once again trying to expand our knowledge base, in this case, beyond tired, dog-eared cliches, we'll examine 10 aspects about JonBenet's brother that you probably don't know about. So look out for that. If you've listened to the end of this video, thank you very much. Well done. And I want to please encourage you to do the same in many more videos. You'll find that it is well worth it listening all the way to the end, because there is a beginning, middle, and end to every one of these videos, which are essentially short stories on YouTube. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.